The one thing that I continue to get messages. So in my meditations, I get instructions. And sometimes, meditations don't always work. Sometimes they don't, and that's okay. You just, don't worry about it. You put it behind you, you go on, you do your day. But we are really meant to be in this state of absolute peace and love and joy and taken care of and prosperous. And all of these things we keep assigning our concept of, our human egos that develop, when you're born and, you kind of nurture and we can talk about that too. Um, but when you truly understand that you will come to a place and where you understand that it is your absolute faith and trust. It's not nothing to do with what you own or the people outside of you. Everybody is merely a reflection of your beliefs. And when you change your beliefs,
Yeah.
your whole life changes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we're streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. The purpose of the show is to help you realize that you are not alone and that you are in control of your life. It doesn't matter where you came from or what the circumstances are. We've all experienced pain, suffering, hurt, abandonment, loneliness, and hopelessness. The show is here to help you turn those dark moments around to create a whole new you. Despite your success, have you felt lonely, angry, frustrated, or even suicidal? Do you long to be supported, recognized, and respected for who you are and not just for the awards and accolades on your walls? You don't want to be known, identified, or remembered in a way that feels fraudulent because you've achieved things out of an obligation and not passion. Do you find yourself sitting quietly at lunch, listening to what lights you up only to feel shame, fear, frustration, and resentment? Your inner turmoil and limiting beliefs surface, making you feel not good enough and afraid to try something different. You've read the books, attended the seminars, and practiced new concepts and principles, and yet you still find yourself in the same rut. The lies you tell yourself perpetuate a cycle of disappointment. You say you'll change, but your self limiting beliefs keep you running the show, keep running the show, creating a self fulfilling prophecy. As a certified coach, I empower you to become your authentic self. My Soul Journey program aligns you with your true self and guides you to find your soul vision, helping you discover your purpose in life. I provide tools to step into your true magnificence and remember who you are. If you're interested in learning more, contact me at bravetv at kathleenmflanagan.com. Each week, I start the show with the sound of the tuning forks, bringing in love, happiness, and balance, and this sets the tone for the show and brings out the best in both myself and my guest. Let's begin. To an outsider, D. Neil Elliott was highly educated, owned a profitable consulting firm, and had a successful career and an amazing wife and family. But things were not always as they seemed to be. Neil was facing a lot of challenges. In a phase, he was in a dark place. Quite by accident, he discovered a higher road. As he traveled that road, he found the key to transforming his life. Over the course of the following year, Neil lifted himself to an inner state of love, peace, joy, and abundance. His perspectives on life changed entirely. His troubles and tribulations were his impetus to find the key that enabled him to revolutionize his life. He learned that the search for a better life does not entail positive thinking, saying affirmations, chanting mantras, and traveling to India to sit at the feet of a guru or any other popularized method of finding yourself. The key to ascend in both spiritual perception and truth, you need to use the right process to break through your entrenched human ego barriers. For nearly 3 decades, Neil read hundreds of self help and spiritual books and took self development courses. All of them offered hope for change and improvement, but nothing fulfilled his need for genuinely delivered on his promises. Neil's desire and his new mission in life is to share the knowledge he gained and the process he used on his journey to self awareness, together with the blueprint document he discovered that was instrumental in transforming his life. He wants to give you, regardless of your station in life, the tools and opportunity to empower yourself, transform your life, and draw peace, joy, love, and prosperity into your personal situation and environment. Neil believes that as more and more people follow this higher road to true spiritual perfection, a new era of love and peace will dawn for everyone throughout the world. Welcome, Neil.
Pleasure to be here today.
Yes. I mean, what a journey you've been on. It sounds like my journey. So, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your journey of becoming an awakening spirit?
Absolutely. And I'll try and keep it short, just not to bore everybody to death. Uh, and I'll start at the beginning. So, born in 1960, give everybody context. Youngest of 6 children. And my father died when I just turned 5. A month later, he passed away.
Mm.
My mom had to go out and work. And, back in the 60s, we were kind of left to our own devices. My grandmother looked after me, but, essentially go out and play and do those kinds of things. And grew up, and essentially, I was kind of lost when I graduated from high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I decided that just one day I thought, oh, you know what? When I was 20 years old, I thought I'll just take engineering. So I got an engineering degree from the University of British Columbia, and in my mid 30s, I got an MBA. So those are my kind of work career qualifications. But when I started embarked on my journey of engineering, I started managing projects. And I was working for some large firms, and then I went to work for a crown corporation in the province of British Columbia. And I felt like I was always trying to be someone that I wasn't, always trying to please the people I was working for, even though internally I might think different thoughts. And little did I know at that time that, it's what we think about that creates these events and experiences in our life. And in the 90s, I picked up some spiritual books, and I was reading them, and, great authors, Wayne Dyer, Carolyn Myss, all the typical ones. And everything made sense to me. I didn't necessarily understand it completely, but everything made sense to me. But no matter what I followed it, I couldn't seem to shake or make any transition in my life. In 2002, I created my own consulting firm, and then I went out to work. I got remarried in 98, so second family, back in 98. And um, I was as a consultant, if you don't work, you don't get paid. If you get sick, you don't get paid. And if you want repeat business, you need to always do your best. And so I was working for, a great client, and I worked and worked and worked. My wife and I built this beautiful waterfront home, like very expensive, like big mortgage, and took 2 salaries just to maintain that house. And it was a waterfront home. It was out in the wilderness, and we had bears and deer and eagles. And whenever I was there, it was just so peaceful. The mortgage was crushing, but the environment was so peaceful, and all these wildlife come to visit us. And so then we'd have to commute into the city, which was a 4-hour commute, including a ferry, and we rented this little one-bedroom apartment. Anyway, bottom line with all of that is I worked to make sure we could afford everything. And what I didn't realize, but from 2002 to 2015, I was just slowly driving myself into this really deep, dark, despondent depression. And in 2015, I realized that I was there. I didn't share it with my wife, my family, or any of my friends or clients, of course. And I picked up newly issued spiritual books and I tried to get out of this situation I was in. I call that kind of this funk or whatever, but in reality, I was really deeply depressed. Tried for a couple of years, it didn't work. In 2017, after our house had been on the market for 5 years, it finally sold. And it was November 2017, we got a signed deal. My wife got on a plane to go to Toronto, Ontario, Canada to visit family and friends. I sat down at this little one bedroom rental, one bedroom apartment in the city, and I crafted out my suicide note. I planned out my suicide. And about a week prior to that, some information just fortuitously came to me that promised to liberate me from my thinking if I studied and followed it. So I was looking for any last sliver of hope, and I thought, okay, well, I'll give it a go. If it works, I'll just keep pushing out I figured I'd commit suicide about 3 months out after we moved, and got rid of all these, stuff you accumulate over a lifetime, and then do it in a way that life insurance would pay out, so my, wife would be financially secure. And so I started following this material, reading it, and it was based in Newtonian science, and it was so believable and it was so understandable. I didn't understand everything, but anything that I read that I had doubts about it, I just kept it in abeyance and just focused on the things that made sense to me. And so I started on this journey, and part of it is you learn this meditation, and initially it's just well meditate. So I kept going on this, and as time progressed, these changes were slowly happening within me. I didn't really understand them. I didn't know what was happening, but it was just slowly, and I went with faith. And in about the seventh, eighth month into this, all of a sudden I could feel this tingling at the top of my head, and it was felt really strange. It was about the size of a dime. Didn't know what it was, and um, then over time that grew. That little thing, it, grew to an inch in diameter, 2 inches, 6 inches in diameter. Then I could feel this energy come in through that area in my head, and it would, either reside in my head or go into my chest or my stomach or solar plexus. Then it started to go down one side of my body and up the other side of the body. Every time I'm meditating, it would do this. And I started out with about 20 minutes, 30 minutes of meditation. I ended up after that year, 90 minutes of meditation every morning without fail. And in that 90 minutes, I got into this space where I was in this silence and stillness. This energy would come in and flow down my body, it'd flow up the other side. It might go down all my body all at once. It might reside in various areas of my body. And then in late December of 2018, so about 13 months after I started this process, I went into two meditations 2 days apart. So I went into this meditation, got into this meditative state. And then, like, in this nanosecond, I was just totally filled with unconditional love. And I felt like a deep sea diver suspended in the ocean, and the ocean was unconditional love. It was just so incredible. And I didn't care what aches and pains my body had. I didn't care what illnesses I had. I didn't care what anybody had done to me or what I had done. I just wanted to stay there forever. Came out of that meditation. And then 2 days later, I had the exact same meditation. And at that point, I knew that this process I followed, um, you know, brought me back to our truth, to who we really are. And then no one knew I was doing this. I didn't tell my wife or anybody. And then I just carried on with it for another probably 2 years till I felt so solid in my understanding, in my belief, in my faith, if you will, that no one could shake me off that. It didn't matter what anybody said. I knew that what I felt and the energy I felt is our truth. and it doesn't matter what anybody says to me. I don't judge them for it because I've been there. I know exactly where they are. But it is so magical and so peaceful. And no matter what's going on around me, I can bring myself into this state of silence and peace. And then from there, and we can talk about this too, but from there, I wrote this book to share all this information with people so that hopefully that somebody picks up that book, they read it. If it makes sense to them, great, then follow it. If it doesn't, that's okay. There's many paths to the top of the mountain, but I can tell you that this is logical, it's rational, it makes sense, and it worked for me, and I know it's worked for others. So I wanted to share that and share that process. And then I have since then done a bunch of other things, and I'm now in a phase of um, kind of going through this acceleration of consciousness. And it's that in itself is another amazing journey.
Well, we're going to explore this a little bit more after we take a commercial break. Are you ready to step into your true potential? Kathleen Flanagan's Get Into Alignment session helps you break through blocks, balance your energy, and align with your highest self. Experience clarity, purpose, and flow like never before. Visit KathleenMFlanagan.com and unlock the power of living in alignment today. Welcome back, everyone, to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. And we have Neil Elliott in the room with us today. And he just unpacked an amazing story. And I understand exactly where he's at because I had that experience once in my life as well from a meditation. And he's absolutely correct when he says, when you know and you feel that, you know. My fear of death left at that moment because in my thoughts, if this was death, then I welcome it, because you can't even imagine what it's like to just feel completely loved and accepted to that degree, because we don't have that here on the planet, but we have it in that other side. So Neil, I would love for you to share after that experience and where you went with that, because that's a very transformational experience. And I know it didn't happen overnight for the transformation to come into fruition, and you were guided. So I would love to learn more about how spirit took you to that next level. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the consciousness thing you're in too, by the way.
Yeah. The one thing that I continue to get messages. So in my meditations, I get instructions. And sometimes, meditations don't always work. Sometimes they don't, and that's okay. You just, don't worry about it. You put it behind you, you go on, you do your day. But we are really meant to be in this state of absolute peace and love and joy and taken care of and prosperous. And all of these things we keep assigning our concept of, our human egos that develop, when you're born, and, you kind of nurture and we can talk about that too. Um, but when you truly understand that you will come to a place and where you understand that it is your absolute faith and trust. It's nothing to do with what you own or the people outside of you. Everybody is merely a reflection of your beliefs. And when you change your beliefs,
Yeah.
your whole life changes. And that took, so that first year, and then all of these changes happen subtly and I'm going to say surreptitiously to you internally. You don't know they're going on, but one day you just wake up and you know something's different. You feel different. You look different. Spirituality is not about, and it's not an intellectual learning. You have to learn certain things that will get you on this path, and then you need a process to kind of go through, whatever that looks like, to have you go through this experiential experience. And so that, those two meditations I had of where I felt like I was just in this deep sea of unconditional love, that just confirmed for me that the path I followed. Then as you mentioned, as I carried on, I tried out other things. I really kept to myself and didn't involve anybody else for a couple of years. Then I decided to write the book. After that, I started to pay attention to other things that were going on. So I learned how to channel. I, learned how to, use energy techniques and for healing and all of those kinds of things. And I won't get into this aspect, but just I was guided to something about a month ago. And it is just, I can tell already that it is just going to, as long as I follow it and I'm faithful with it and I just follow this practice, it will bring me into who I really am. And because we spiritual beings, you get to a point and it's easy to plateau and
Yeah.
think you are, because you're awake and you're aware and you've grown in that, awakeness and awareness, and you might learn how to channel or do these other things. You think that is it. I can tell you it's not.
I know. Yep.
And
I love it.
there's,
Oh, this is
there,
so exciting because I know exactly what you're talking about. So keep going. I'm so excited. I'm not the only one.
well, and we can be excited together because I'm excited to be on the show and talking with you about this. So, and hopefully there's other listeners that, this will spark them into, kind of progressing on their journey. So, I've come to this realization, and I don't want to say a whole lot about this at the moment because I'm still learning it and I'm still experiencing it. But really, this next phase for me is I know this already. It's, humans use about a quarter of their brain. And, when you start to learn these techniques, become awake and aware, maybe you'll end up using about a third of your brain. And, gurus, that people like to sit at the, base of their feet at and listen to them, they might be using 35% of their brain or maybe up to 40. But many people plateau out at that level. And I can tell you there's other things for you to learn and to do to bring you into a God realization level. And in order to do that, you need to use all of your brain, all of your consciousness, and become one with our Creator. And then you accelerate beyond that to merge with your Creator. And when you do that, then you have achieved your objective, if you will, or your goal for your spiritual expansion of Christ consciousness, if we'll call it that, your spiritual melding with your Creator. And when you understand that, our Creator, whether you call it God, Yahweh, the Tao, whatever you call it, is omnipresent and omniscient and omnipotent and is just all that is, you will also then begin to fully understand and fully embrace the fact that you are an aspect of God. You are an individuated aspect of God having this experience to grow in spiritual awareness, to expand Christ consciousness, and to have these experiences which expand and grow all of awareness and all of consciousness and all of God. And when you truly and uniquely understand we are all one and we are just varying aspects of that, you'll understand that many of these teachings and stuff that come to you is just another aspect of you helping you along on your journey.
Yes.
But
Very much
there's not
so.
many people, there's not many people I can talk to about this.
No. And you know what's really interesting? I did a book signing over the weekend. Well, Saturday and Sunday. So I did two. And I was talking to one of the other authors, and I just said, I said, I've come to realize that what I talk about and what I say and how I've lived my life, I thought there were a lot more people involved in it because I attracted those people to me. And now that I'm on the other side where I'm an author and I'm trying to get my message out and I'm doing the things that I'm doing, I said, there's not a lot of people looking for what I'm doing right now. And it was just, and she's like, well, yeah, hello. And I said, I know, but I said, my whole life, the people that I was associated with, the gurus that I supposedly followed, I mean, I thought there were so many more people involved in this movement of spirituality when there wasn't. Because, I went to the bookstore and I would find all these books on New Age spirituality. So I figured there was a lot more people out there doing this and come to learn, not so much. But what's interesting though is because of who I am, the people who are looking for me find me.
Yes.
And that's the key is finding. So that's why I realize that I need to get myself out there more. I need to speak more. I need to do more. Because what was it about a month ago? Spirit says you're not speaking enough, and I'm like, what are you? Excuse me, I'm not using my voice enough. Are you serious? What else do you want me to do? And then they give me a list of what else I can do. Okay, that's how spirit is. Because you ask, they'll give you an answer. But I understand this acceleration process that you're on as well, because I'm on that process too. My higher self actually came into me in April. I thought she was my future self, but she was my higher self because of the energy pattern that was okay. I remember this in 2008. I don't know what this is, not, a future self vibrational energy. And then last week I was told, I said, I'm having this push pull and I'm not sure what's going on. And when I was talking to my coach, and he said, Kath, you're elevating. Your frequency's going up. And it's what you said. We are internally, we're going through this, and externally, we don't see it. But sometimes other people see it better than we do because we're so engaged in our own internal world. And I know there's an acceleration because I'm being pushed right now like there is no tomorrow. And coming back from a book signing is like, I'm going to sit here and do nothing today. Met a woman, she lived in Italy. She's an American. She lived in Italy for years, raised her kids. And she said, I have a farm in Italy that's about 2 hours from the airport, and you are welcome to use that. And I will set everything up. So when you're ready to write those books, you give me a call. We connected and we're going to stay in touch. And I was like, and Spirit's going, yep, that's where you're going. I'm like, I've always wanted to go to Italy since I was 16 years old. Okay. So, hey, what's a lifetime? But, it's trusting that, because when you know.
Yes. Yes. When you know, you know.
And I trust that because it makes perfect sense. So everything you're saying totally resonates with me because I know the world you're living in. And it's a very isolated world, and not in a bad way, but most people don't understand that world yet. And that's why you're learning this because, again, I'm bringing the way showers to the forefront. I'm trying to get the message out that we need people desperately at this time because the shift on this planet is happening. It's not going to be happening. We are in it as of today. The shift is here and
Yes.
there's
Agreed.
no getting around it. So you have to get on the boat, or when the swish comes in, you can go on the other planet that's set up for if you want to stay in duality, or do you want to come into a Christ consciousness and come back into 2,000 years of love, peace, and happiness? And that's how I look at it. And I'm so on that boat for peace, love, and happiness.
Absolutely. And, I think that the other thing that has become super clear for me, and again, it's like I say these things to, people I'm engaged with, and they look at me like I have two heads. But I know when I say this to you, you're going to likely understand what I'm talking about. It's that because we have believed what we believed around the structure, we have, the beliefs in these systems that we have to work hard, that we have to get mortgages to pay our houses, that we need things to satisfy us and fulfill us, and that we have to, um, kind of sometimes take on this better than the Joneses attitude of things. I can tell you these are all distractions of the ego. And when you can understand that in reality, what you are meant to accelerate your consciousness and come to this point of self-realization of this expanded consciousness to merge with Christ consciousness, to merge with God consciousness. All of that stuff drops away. You don't care about any of that stuff. You don't care about, you'll come to a point where you don't care about your housing, where you don't care about, do I have enough money or I have food? Because I can tell you God has all the cash you need.
You know, you're right. I'm just going to say that. You're right. And I'm getting a message. I have to write this down real quick, but it's all about my next book. The
Mm,
what you were saying that triggered this and why I have to write this down is I was told this when I was probably around 16 years old, somewhere in that vicinity in my very late teens, early 20s, that everything was a distraction on this planet. And even though we were still very embedded in duality at that point, there wasn't a lot of awareness yet. I mean, I was at the point where when my grandmother died when I was 8, 10 years old, I said, Mom, we got to go get grandma. And she's like, what are you talking about? I said, Grandma's awake. She's alive. Because I saw my grandmother standing on top of her grave. Her feet were still in the dirt. But what was she telling me? There's life after death. She's still alive. Well, we didn't know what that meant back then. So I can imagine what I did to my mother on that emotional trauma that I caused for her, not intentionally, but I couldn't sleep because I realized that my grandmother was alive. And then it was years later, probably about 6 to 8 years later, is when, the concept of Edgar Casey started kind of filtering through a little bit more, that it ran to my mother, which caused where I am today. And it was all because of an Edgar Casey meeting I had gone to. But what you were saying at that point was I remember not understanding what you just said about God provides, the duality, the spirituality, the involvement. And I'm like, I don't think I know how to let this go because I didn't. And I remember being very afraid of, I don't know, am I going to lose myself in this? Because I think I'm going to get lost. Like, I'm just going to become like this invisible person just merging back with the creator. And there was this really strong sense of self that I wanted to like show, not understanding the thought thinking process yet. And I've come to realize, oh no. I mean, it took a lifetime to get here, but it's so true that when you connect with spirit the and God, the angels, whatever you want to call it, your life does transform and they are there and they are helping you. Like they're driving the car and all you have to do is listen to where they tell you to go. And now that's not always easy when we're very egotistical and I know better and I know everything and you know nothing attitude. That's why that surrender becomes very critical because how many times when I was younger, I wouldn't really relinquish driving the car in my dreams. I was always in control. And then when I was not in control in my dreams, I was terrified. But that was the perfect place for me to be, was because then I was surrendering and I was listening and following. I mean, it took a lifetime truly to really get to this place. And I watched my growth and evolution over the years, but I just remember in the very beginning how terrifying that was of I'm just going to be like another fish in the ocean and there's no personality and there's no anything. And I found that to be wrong because they showed me what that was in a meditation about all of this and having a body is one of the greatest gifts we could ever have. Even though we don't think it is, it truly is, because the experiences that we have in a physical body, you will never have in consciousness. You will never have
right.
it.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
that's, I mean, that whole process is to, my understanding is to expand Christ consciousness. So we have these various understandings of, when you're in a sea of unconditional love, you can't understand anything other than unconditional love. So you have to come into this incarnation and these various incarnations to actually understand this juxtaposition between light and dark, good and bad, hard and easy, so to speak. And so the aspect of, as you're going through this acceleration port and you are in this process of doing this, what I have found is the same thing that you just talked about. Well, okay, if I take this next step and do this, will I lose myself? And, and the point is that you get to decide, and
Yep.
there's no right or wrong, good or bad. It's just your choice and your journey and your uniqueness and your unique vibrational frequency. And but when you can understand that you're not actually going to lose yourself, you're just going to evolve into who you really are. And this thing of surrender, it's trust and surrender, trust and surrender, trust and surrender. And, many people, and certainly I've done this, is I doubt, oh, did I just hear that correctly? I don't believe that. That's the ego fighting you to try and stay alive and stay connected. And if you can just trust and surrender, and it takes courage
It does
to
take
do it.
courage because when we're jumping off the cliff, so to speak, or jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, because that's been my dream experience. I'm jumping out of perfectly good airplanes, and right now I'm standing on the edge of the cliff, ready to jump, but I'm in the sacred pause, so to speak, because there's divine timing.
Yes.
So I have to know where I'm at. I have to actually fully comprehend where I'm at, understand what's going on, keep my observance up, and then wait for the word jump, because the minute they tell me to jump, I'm going. Now I'm
Yes.
still pushing, I mean, I have a tendency to like want to take control and push a little bit. And then I realize, okay, this is futile. Why am I wasting my energy when they're going to tell me anyways, right? I get it. I'm still human. I still want to be a control freak sometimes, not always, thank God. But I still have that feeling, because that powerless feeling, it doesn't feel comfortable. When you feel like you're powerless, even though that's when you're in your most powerful state, is when you feel powerless. I mean, that's a dichotomy that just is like, I don't understand. And then when that higher self, I want to say this because this is also part of what you were saying too, is when that higher self came in, and I'm thinking, okay, I have another box to blow up, because I just created not a limiting belief, but thinking that if I had my higher self in, I like made it. And I'm going, no, what comes next? So I became a child of what's coming next, because I don't know. I truly don't know what that next level would be. So I'm trying to visualize what this new level is. I have no comprehension of it to do it. So all it's like, to me, all I can do is trust and surrender, because
Yes.
it's coming. I feel it coming towards me, and I'm moving towards it. And when we get into alignment, that'll be a whole nother thing, because there are times I walk around going, I have no idea where I am. And I'm walking to my house and it's like, no, no, you're somewhere else, you know? Because if you're sensitive enough and you're paying attention, when you're elevating, that you don't know where you are. And the new world that we're going into, and what you're talking about, is we have to have our emotions um, activated, because it's not a thinking place, it's an emotional place. And you have to understand the subtleties of that energy, because that energy is so subtle that things
Hmm.
can go right by you and you can keep on driving because you're going to miss it. But if you're paying attention, you're going to go, oh, I'm supposed to go over here instead of driving
Yes.
by it.
Yes.
And that's what I think is so cool, because you're saying the same thing without saying that, but that's what you're saying. That next evolution that we're going on is in the heart. It's in our emotions. It's in unconditional love. And we will
Absolutely.
be recognizing people not through a physical appearance, but through the heart, energetic places where we're going to find our people to resonate with.
Yes.
We're not going to get
Yes.
conned
Well,
anymore, people.
no, exactly. And that whole, aspect of integrating, experiencing. So instead of trying to block your energy and emotions, your hate, your anger, your outrage, your fears, really, you know, what you need to do on this journey is just feel them and allow them. And if you can feel them, they don't last long, 15 minutes or so, and they'll
Oh,
pass
90
right through you.
seconds. It's
Yeah.
90
Or yeah,
seconds.
sorry, did I say minutes? No, like
Yeah.
15 seconds. And they don't last long, but they may be very intense for you. But if you don't hang on to them, they'll just pass through you.
Yep.
They pass through like, wind through the branches and leaves of a tree. They rustle and the tree feels it, but the tree doesn't hang on to them. It just lets the wind go through. And that's the same thing you need to do with your emotions, is just let them just go through. And the more and more you do that, and if you have specific fears about certain things, they are hard to do that with. But this is the journey. And it's a challenge, but I tell you, it's well worth it.
It is well worth it. And I know that today I had like crankiness, feeling a little cranky for some reason, and I'm okay with it. Doesn't last long. Just, it's just life. The issues of life sometimes just have a way of just creeping in. And it's okay. And I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
But what I do notice that when I go to bed and I'm having like these little minor panic attacks is when I know that I'm ready to shift because it's hitting the central nervous system. And people have to understand that if you keep moving through these emotions that are terrifying you, the ego is going to fight to stop you, and it does go into the central nervous system. And I'm
Yes.
walking proof of getting on the other side of it, and then it's like, whoa, where am I? And it's not one rung on the ladder you went up several, and then you have an integration process in that. Okay, put that in the book. um, okay, guys. Nothing like getting information while I'm talking. But that was the whole thing when I bought this house. I was on this little, what I thought was, oh, I'm just buying a house. Oh, no, I was not buying a house. I was doing way more than that. And and that's when I started discovering so much more. That's why this acceleration for me has happened too, is because I decided I'm going to be happy no matter what. It was like that is the driving force, is staying happy, because spirit wants you playful. They want you childlike. They want you having fun and happy, because it makes the transition so much easier too. But if you're going to go kicking and screaming, just give up and jump out of the boat and go drown, because
Yes.
I mean, just go get lost in your emotions. Otherwise, it's like, okay, I'm feeling this. It's like, okay, let's put on some music and dance around and get the energy and get the emotion out. Get
Yes.
creative with releasing those emotions, because it's just releasing from the body. It has nothing, there's no attachment. Just let it go. It wants to leave.
Yeah, exactly. And it's alerting you to something that's going on too that you haven't looked at, that you need to clear. So just and it takes practice to do that, because sometimes it's really easy, as you know, to really get caught up in something, right? In a fear or an anger or something like that. And you'll get to this place where you see everybody, that the ego is merely a tool of creation to create this individuality, to create these experiences that with your thinking you draw to you to experience. And when you let go, the ego is going to fight and battle to keep this little I individuality. But if you can understand these mechanics of this kind of stuff in a way that's logical and makes sense to you, it can help you go through this process of understanding that your soul is equal to my soul, equal to every other soul. It's unconditional love. And what you're doing is you're trying to you're trying to experience all of these things to grow that and experience it and let it go.
Well, and
Yeah.
I've learned years ago, and I'm actually finally, we're in a place in society that this can start happening, was that we start coming together. It's no longer the I, it's the two, it's the three, it's the five, it's the 10. We just get bigger and bigger to become more of that one unit. And what I'm finding, that the more alignment in a line that I am, I'm finding and drawing those people to me. So I've hired a couple of people, and we are so in alignment with each other that I feel like instead of it's just me and the one, you have one and one, it's not, you're not doubling your efforts, you're quadrupling it. But when you have a triple braided cord, so I'm looking for like one more person, it's exponential what can happen. It's the sky's the limit. It's the Steve Jobs and Apple computers. It's Bill Gates and the PC world. When you have a triple braided cord, everything changes. And I'm finding that because I'm brought people towards me and we're getting in sync with each other, it's like we're like one unit, but we're still very individualized. And that was a very hard concept to understand 30, 40 years ago. Okay. I knew these concepts 40 years ago. I knew COVID was coming. When it hit,
Hmm.
I knew it, and I was mad at God because I said I wasn't supposed to be for this. But I understood what it was about. I understood about changing my perspective and all of that. But the fact that there's like, say, there's five of us working together right now for me, but we're one unit expanding exponentially out in a concentric circle, and yet we're still individualized. It's such a beautiful experience, one you can't understand until you allow yourself to be that person.
Yes.
And that's a lot of work up here. When you're a control freak, you don't trust people, whatever it is that you're doing, when you can shift this to where your group of people and you're one, but we're individual, I love it. That is the most powerful place to be because we're
Hmm.
unstoppable.
Absolutely. And part of the whole, don't want to say movement, part of the whole acceleration of energy for the entire ecosystem of planet and people and animals, etc. So absolutely.
Yeah, totally. Well, we have about 10 minutes left. So, what would you like to share with the audience or share where your next step is, whatever it is? So, I just want to get a little bit because I'm going to ask people how to get a hold of you, but I just want if there's anything that you want to say that you haven't said because this conversation is going too fast for me. I
We
love
could
talking to people like you. I really do.
we could spend much more time.
Oh, yes.
Um, I think that the big thing for people to understand is that, from my perspective, is no matter where you are, whether you're ill or you're healthy, you're happy, depressed, whether you live in a mansion or you live on the street, you can totally change your world right where you are if you have the right process and you gain the knowledge and then you follow that in faith and trust and understanding. And I firmly believe that, the easiest way to do that is the process I followed. It worked for me, might not work for you, but the process I followed was so rational and logical. And then one thing I learned in that, which I didn't learn until I started that process, was the real purpose of meditation. And the real purpose of meditation is to enter the silence and stillness of your mind. Stop all your thoughts. And that takes practice. But there's a meditation that you learn, and you learn what your target is. And as you go through that process, reaching out to your target, see, our Creator emits unconditional love to everything, every instant of the day. But it's your vibrational frequency, it's your ego consciousness which blocks it and it doesn't allow it to speak to you. So when you start to open yourself up and you start to cleanse your consciousness and then rebuild it to be consistent and congruent with where we come from, you then start to build new brain cells underneath the topmost area of the brain, underneath the skull, that operate at a higher vibrational frequency and allow the creator to start to communicate with you so that you feel it. And then as you continue on that process, that grows and grows and grows. And then you'll feel this energy flowing through your body. And you may experience it in different ways. And just because it happened a particular way to me doesn't mean it's going to happen that way to you, but there will be similarities.
Beautiful.
And then you will experience something that will solidify for you and convince you that you're on the right path.
Yes,
That
that's absolutely beautiful because there's so much truth in that. Meditation is what got me on the journey, and I learned to quiet my mind. And I value my quiet time. I value being alone because I feel the calmest and I receive messages because of it. I just don't, I don't, I'm not glued to my devices
yeah.
because that's a huge distraction. So, Neil, how can people get a hold of you?
The easiest way is the book is titled A Higher Road. And so if you do ahigherroad.com, that'll take you to my author website, and all of my contact information to, send me an email, etc., are on there, and you learn a little bit about it. And the book is available globally through all the various channels, bookstores or Amazon or in all the various electronic formats as well. Nook, Apple, Google, Kindle.
I love it. Well, Neil, I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. It was such a pleasure to have you and to talk a little bit higher than normal on vibrational changes and frequencies. I mean, I do have a guest that comes on, Zach Lyotis, and she and I go down this road all the time. And, so what a pleasure to have somebody else talk the same way, and that it was a man besides just a woman, because, men do have these enlightening moments as well. So I think that's even cooler that you're as enlightened as you are, and you're on that beautiful path going to show people the way home, the way that we're supposed to be living. And I bless you, and I thank you so much for the work that you're doing, because I know how hard this work is, but it is well worth it. Every bit of it's well worth it. I wouldn't change a moment of my life for where I am today.
Yeah, exactly. And all of those things that I've regretted in the past, I've let all that go. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It got
Exactly.
me to here.
Yep, that's exactly right. That was the purpose. And that was what you created by design. Believe it or not, you created
Yeah.
that by design. And that was what you needed to do. So, again, thank you so much, Neil, for being with us today. And I want to thank everyone for joining us. And if you found any value here today, if you want to share or share the link with your friends and family, I would be very appreciative of that. And if you want to subscribe, then you can get more insight of when the next show is going to be available, and we can send out emails to you for that. And if you're struggling with anything or you want more clarity about what we talked about today, feel free to reach out to myself or Neil. I'm at Brave TV at Kathleen M. Flanagan, and Neil's contact information will be on the website, so there will be a way to get a hold of him. My books, Dancing Souls, The Call, The Dark Night of the Soul, and Awakened, are available on Amazon.com and the Kathleen M. Flanagan site. Kathleen M. Flanagan has the 3-minute de-stress meditation that's absolutely free, and you can also get a list of my services and products that are offered there. And that concludes our show for the day. And I hope for everyone in America, I hope you all have a very happy and fabulous Thanksgiving. And I will see all of you next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.